Welcome back to the Locker Room Podcast, podcast number 66, brought to you by Rip.app. Rip.app has all your coaching, monitoring, and business tools in one place. Simplify program creation and delivery, and take the pain out of client-athlete monitoring so you can focus on what you love doing, which is coaching. Today's episode is on the importance of coaching education. So I've got Stevie Poacher with me here today, and he's going to talk to us about the development of coaching education at GAA and its importance at both individual and club level. So welcome onto the show, Stevie.
Good man, Joe. Thanks very much, man.
Stevie, first off, your long-running coaching clinic, you'll be a busy man this weekend. I believe it's the largest of its kind in Ireland, and it's taking place this weekend in Newry. Could you tell us a wee bit about that coaching clinic this weekend, and also maybe about how it has evolved over the years?
Yeah, Joe, look, it was an idea that stemmed in a classroom in small classroom in Mourne in Kilkeel in St. Columban's, going back now 13 years, Joe. My inspiration for coach education came from John Morrison. Now gone back a number of years ago. John, rest him, like John would have ran workshops in Armagh, actually across the road from where he lived, actually just facing the cathedral there in Armagh, and there was a wee 3G pitch in there. And also a grass pitch as well that teams would use, school teams would use. And he ran a coach education evening one night. And John, being John, you know, as quirky as he was, arrived with the big Russian hat on and the squeezy whistle. This squeezy whistle, first time I ever seen it, ever. You know, I don't know if you've seen them, Joe, but they're hygienic whistles. Yeah. And I've become notorious now for using them. Like, you know, the lads in school laugh like when I'm squeezing away at the whistle, like, you know, and the young lads like to use it as well when they're refereeing games and things like that. But, you know, John, you know, being unique as he was, delivered this coach education even. And I always thought to myself, but Jesus, you know, this is invaluable. Like, and then I started going to they used to run the sort of coach professional development ones, the CBD courses. The Ulster Council used to run the likes of Philip Kerr and guys like us here would have been doing them in the Mid Ulster Sports Arena, Joe. You know, in around about 2007, 2008, when I was really starting to get into coaching for the first time. And, you know, being a PE teacher anyway, you were always going to be coaching every day of the week. So just something that you want to try and improve. Good coaching will help improve good teaching, and vice versa. Good teaching help improve good coaching, because a lot of the qualities remain the same in both, Joe, you know. So I was going to these things, and the one thing, Joe, that I really enjoyed about them was the practical element. So you're actually getting to see a coach in operation. Now, people think it's actually you're going just to see the drills and the games, but you're actually going to see the coach style as well, and how that coach presents and how that coach delivers. Now, I deliver in my own unique way. I deliver with a lot of industry and a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of passion. That's the way I like to deliver my coaching, you know. And what I've learned down the years, Joe, is that, you know, sometimes you have to have a lot of patience. You have to make things very, very simple, you know, when you are coaching. But this coach education sort of idea then really stemmed from 2008. I was in Croke Park at the GAA National Coaching Conference, and it was in Croke Park in 2008, and the whole emphasis was about trying to create and develop, Joe, a games-based approach to coaching, right? A games-based approach. Now that's 15 years ago or 14 years ago. There is probably still elements of coaching within the GAA that is very drill-orientated, Joe, right? Very drill-orientated, and drills will only improve your young players to a certain degree, and then after that it's obviously up to, you know, their experience through games and their thinking through games. Like, and this is something that I sort of come up with then, that we would run a coaching day in school that might sort of coincide with a fundraiser, but also might actually give me something to really look to and really develop over the years. And it started in 2009, January 2009, and we had John was actually one of the first presenters, actually, believe it or not. Lord rest him now, he's passed away, God love him. But John was one of the first presenters, and down the years, I probably should have had a list of people here that have presented, but we've had some seriously good coaches, Joe, and without leaving anybody out, like, you know, we've had the likes of, you know, Jim McCorry and you know, Paul McIver and Barney McAleenan, you know, Aidan O'Rourke, Peter Donnelly, you know, Colm Nally. We've had some fantastic coaches, some brilliant coaches down the years. And this year, obviously, our lineup is no different. We've got Bernard Jackman doing a talk. We have Enda McGinney doing a pitch session on scanning, and we've Niall Morgan doing a session on integrating the goalkeeper into the full session. A really good day plan. And then obviously as well, we've been very fortunate that the day has grown to the extent that we have performance sports and stat sports linking in with us as well on the day, Joe. But it started, Joe, with 57 coaches in 2009, January 2009, and last year, October 2021, we had 430 coaches. You know, which is a phenomenal growth, Joe. Phenomenal growth. You know,
that's a lot.
Yeah, and it's something that we've really prided ourselves on, Joe, is the uniqueness of our day. You know, I do see a lot of coaching courses popping up now, and it's great to see it. Like, but you know, ours is for the right reasons. It's an unprofitable day, Joe. It's to help raise funds for the school. Plus, as well, we have a huge level of experience in delivering these days. You know, for these days to work, Joe, you need a group of players. Your own brother, actually, Penny, is bringing the down minors, and they're going to be the guinea pigs for the day. So they're the guys that are performing the drills, and that's important, Joe. That's important. Now, the reason it's important is because, yes, in a realistic coaching session, drills will fail, games will fail, you know, players will make mistakes, but you do need a high level of player to demonstrate the drill in the game on the day, because players or coaches then will get a really better feel for it. And you can also get through more stuff a lot quicker then, Joe. So coaches are taking a mountain of ideas away. And that's something that a lot of courses struggle with. A lot of courses struggle with the fact that you really need the players. You really need the players on the day to perform, Joe, you know.
Yeah, I've seen a few coaching videos online on YouTube there, Stevie, and the sort of quality of the players hasn't really been that good. And as you say, drills start to break down, the coach starts to get frustrated, and then the whole thing can sort of fall apart.
Yeah, and listen, look, don't get me wrong, Joe. If you go to a coaching day and you pick up one or two wee small things, it's been a success. That's the way I always look at it. Like, you know, and like I got 3 text messages today, believe it or not, in very quick succession. I got one from Galway. There's a carload of lads coming from Galway. I got one from a gentleman in Tipperary. Actually, there's 2 of them traveling from Tipperary, and actually 3 men traveling from the O'Loughlin Club in Carlow. Like, and it shows the extent, Joe, of where the day has reached to and how far it's gone. And like, Joe, for us as well as a school, you know, just so that people are aware of it, and I obviously will say this on Saturday as well when we kick off the day. Like, the very first year, this is our third one in St. Joseph's. I obviously had 10 previous in St. Clemens and Kilkeel, but like the funds the very first day, Joe, put in a brand new strength conditioning suite for our lads, you know, in school, which was absolutely invaluable. You know, we got a guy called R2 Fitness from Tyrone who came in and got it out of an old classroom, brand new S&C suite. We've added to that since as well with dumbbell racks and, you know, 3 or 4 squat racks, prowler tracks and stuff like that. And it's brilliant for our kids, like, you know. And then the other thing, Joe, as well, last year we had 3 sets of goals as well that the coaching day paid for as well, you know, and like, you know, small portable goals for the field and nets and stuff. Just small things like that, Joe, that helps, you know, the development of GA within the school. And the money is going back into the right reasons, which is important for coaches to realize. I think coaches really appreciate that and respect that, because the value of our day as well, like it was £10, you know, 14 years ago, and it's only, well, it was £10 last year, but we've put it up this year to 15, just from the simple point of view being that it's the first time we've actually put the money up, you know. And for £15 to listen to the likes of Bernard Jackman, who's absolutely inspirational, to see the likes of McGinley's is going to be very interesting, Joe, because it's based around scanning and getting your head up and looking fun, trying to kick the ball and things like that. And that's probably a big talking point now within our association, that maybe the game has become very, very much hand pass orientated. That's something that he's going to work on as well. And then Niall Morgan's as well is obviously very, very important, because we understand the influence and the importance of the goalkeeper now in the modern game. So all in all, Joe, a really, really good day to look forward to. Joe Turley coming in and performance sports towards the end of the day to do a sort of analysis bit as well towards the end of the day, which would be very interesting. So all in all, coaches are going to get a really, really good morning's learning, Joe.
Yeah, it certainly will be interesting, Stevie, to see what Enda has to say about scanning and vision in players. That should be a very interesting one. Stevie, I'm just looking at an email here that you sent me 10 years ago. You used to send drills and all 10 years ago, and you sent one of your coaching clinic booklets when you were at St. Columban's College there in Kilkeel, and this one's from 2013. Some of the contents: shooting should form a part of every training session, shooting games, drills, 4 shooting games, fitness testing made easy, fitness test guidelines. And then you've got a quote here that says, champions are everywhere. They just need guidance and coaching. Do you still stand by that mantra?
Absolutely, Joe. Absolutely. You know, probably some of the best days, Joe, that I've had coaching. Like, I've come through schools football. You're a teacher yourself, and when you see a wee group grow from 10, 11 years of age to to 16, 17, and you see the development in them, Joe, you see the improvement in them. And school teams, like, people have this obsession now, Joe, like absolute downright obsession with winning, at a particularly young age. And I'll give you two examples there recently which I found really, really unhealthy. So I watched an underage blitz. I was actually out watching the wee girl playing a football match and under 14 game, and there was an under 9 blitz on. And I just thought, Joe, it was just so win at all cost orientated. And listen, people are doing it because they love it. They want their kids to succeed. They want the best for their clubs. But is that developing and coaching the youngster? Probably not. Like, to the detriment, maybe, Joe, of 10 or 15 other children who maybe don't play or who are pushed into a perceived B team and don't get that opportunity to play with players of a higher ability, etc., etc. And we've got to remember, Joe, it's a bit like the 11 plus. I'm dead against it. The transfer test, dead against it. And the reason I'm dead against it, Joe, is very, very straightforward. If everyone was to judge every young player's technical and athletic ability at 10 or 11 years of age, we wouldn't have too many senior county players. Like, I think of the late developers, the likes of, even in our own school in Kilkeel, the likes of Ambrose Rogers, who would have been a late young Ambrose, the likes of Peter Canavan, who would have been a late comer to the Throne Scores. Like, everyone develops at a different level, at a different, at a different pace. And it's the same academically. Certain children will develop later, academically, and will become stronger at numeracy or literacy or whatever it happens to be. Yourself from a teaching perspective, Joe. And that's why it's important that it's a development. Every age should be developed. Then you get that plateau where it is, right, now we're looking at winning. And I think that's vitally important to remember that, development should take preference, Joe, over winning at a really, I don't want to put a level on it or an age on it, but for me, I look at the Spanish model where there's no competitive football and soccer till they're no full-time really competitive leagues until they're 14, 15. And it's something that we could maybe learn from, Joe. You go to some of these blitz and it's win at all costs, and it just sometimes takes away from the technical aspect of it. But guidance is huge, Joe. Coaching is huge, and having that guidance as well to be able to sort of install a bit of character in young people, to show your students that you're cure, and try and inspire them through really good role models and things like that as well, and just encourage them to just make good judgments in their life and things like that, Joe, as well, and good decisions. And that's something that's vitally important as well, because good coaching and good teaching are very interlinked. And I get my most pleasure, Joe, from working with school teams, most pleasure. And like even today, for example, like our boys beat St. Malachy's Castlewellan by a point in the under 14s. Now, I don't take that wee team, Gareth Campbell and Marty Mallon take it in school. Like, the joy that we had after that, because this wee group probably looked at it last year and thought, like, we're maybe not at this level, and we moved up through the grades, really spiraled up through the grades, like to we're nearly playing B football. So much like joy in that today, because you've seen the growth and you've seen the development of those lads. And again, I'm not contradicting myself about winning. I was happy, Joe, at half time because it was a draw. And I said to Kevin, me and Kevin were watching, and I says, this is a success here today. No matter what happens, this is a success, but we've been competitive with movements. And Joe, this is the thing as well, which we're probably going to come to, the work that our local clubs have been doing all summer. You can see the difference and the development in some of these young lads. And I pulled one young lad aside today and I said to him, you are honestly one of the most improved players in this school. Like, and he was buzzing, and he was delighted, and he left the field feeling $1 million, because he has been, and that's testament to the work that the good clubs are doing as well,
Yeah, it certainly does all come back to coaching. The coaches, as you said, just going back to the sort of evolution of coaching education, Mickey Ned O'Sullivan and others, they led these kind of coaching development courses back in the 70s. But it actually goes back a wee bit further to the 60s when our own Joe Lennon published 2 books. The first one was in 1964. It was called Coaching Gaelic Football. And then he released another one in 1969 called Fitness for Gaelic Football. Now, it's probably no surprise, yourself and I know about this, is that Down won 3 All-Irelands during that period. And he was probably ahead of his time, Joe Lennon. So I suppose the question is, how important is it that counties and clubs promote and support these types of coaching clinics and coaching education in general?
You see, Joe, there's maybe a misconception out there that it's an ego bashing thing, and it's like, a sort of a backslapping exercise for some coaches to stand up there and perform on Saturday. And I'm not going there to watch him, but you're not. It's not that. We're going to learn up. The best resource we have as coaches is each other, Joe. I've spent some great times, over the last number of years, in other sports, going to watch the likes of Hearts in Scotland, and spend a bit of time in their camp, professional rugby setups, hockey, Ireland hockey. These are sports that you will learn from, because every coach is a good coach, right? And every coach carries a different dynamic, different personality. But if you can pick up 2 or 3 little things, Joe, that you can bring back to your club, your school, your county, that's only going to enhance your players, better players, and better coaches will make better players. And this time of the year is so critical for that, Joe. It's a hugely important time for coaches to upskill. It really is. But for me, Joe, and this is the big thing I've been very passionate about over the last number of years, not just in Down. I'm not saying that this is a Down thing. We can do so much more for coach education in our county, right? And we could run so many more of these nights. So, for example, last year, Joe, last January, I decided to trial something, and Daily Sport were involved in it, and it was the winter coach education program.
Yeah.
3 nights in a row. We had the guts, Joe, of nearly 1,000 coaches come through the gates of our school in those 3 nights, and that was a phenomenal learning experience. And that was just an hour and a half in the evening, or an hour and 20 minutes, of presenting some games, giving some games-based approach to training, and a lot of things came up that became a lot of talking, et cetera, and it was class. But for me, Joe, I think from a GA perspective, I don't think our coaching qualifications are anywhere near the level in which they should be at, when you've got your level 1s, your level 2s, your 3s, etc., and then you've got, the likes of Satanta College will run things and stuff like that. But I just feel, Joe, we could really follow the path of professional soccer, where you have your UEFA A, your UEFA B, and you'd be more tuned into it maybe than I would be, from speaking to Kieran more often. But the soccer seems to be where you have to earn your qualification, Joe. I'm not being disrespectful to the foundation and the level 1, but you can roll on there next weekend, and you can do it over 2 weekends, and all of a sudden GA give you a certificate and you're a qualified coach. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that's something that we could really, really look at and learn from other sports, Joe, in that respect. And I know it's a financial thing, a cost thing, but it gives you an opportunity, Joe, to really, really improve the levels and the standards of coaching. Because I'll give you a quick story. When Germany were failing, so the Germans is where they were failing, right? And what they did was they looked at why they were failing, and they looked at their academy systems. And this is when before Germany had the really good spell there quite recently, when the likes of Thomas Muller and these guys were only coming through their academies. Germany were focused on big, strong, fit athletes. The German teams were always very functional, very fit, very athletic. And then all of a sudden, the likes of this Thomas Muller was coming through, and Man City and these guys, and there were more smaller, tactical, base players. But it wasn't because, Joe, a different type of player was coming through. It was because they were developing a different type of coach. That was the big thing. Germany actually ripped up their whole coach education program, their whole coach education system, and they installed a brand new emphasis on actually improving the coaching, Joe, from underage level up. And they reaped the rewards. And that was the time that Muller and these guys were coming through, and they reaped the rewards because they were contesting European championships and World Cups every year for about 8 or 9 years.
And Stevie, the GAA, I think, carried out a survey recently on coaches. I think something like 10,000 took part. Something like 90% said they had a coaching qualification. 10% said they didn't. Now, I'd be worried if that. I think it's a bit more than 10%. But as you said, they currently have the foundation, the level 1, level 2, and I think there's a level 3 on the way. But as you said there about the UEFA licenses, I think the pro UEFA license, you need that to actually manage a team that's in the Champions League or the Europa League. Do you think that some kind of system like that should come into the GAA, where it's compulsory to manage an inter-county team that you have to have a certain coaching qualification, or a club team or something like that? Or we're not at that stage yet? What do you think?
100%. Some sort of regulation at inter-county level, 100%, Joe. And the reason simply being is that too many inter-county jobs revolve around jobs for the boys, and old boys network, players, etc., strolling out of jobs, strolling out of their playing careers and straight into an inter-county job on the back of a name or the back of a successful county or something like that, and it's probably unfair. Like I'm well down the road now of coaching, but I look at so many good young coaches. Like I'm 43 now, Joe, and I've been coaching, at schools level now for 21 years.
Stevie, is that why? Sorry to cut across. Is that why there's such a high turnover of coaches at inter-county level? Is because some of them haven't got the qualifications, or is that a different thing?
No, I think, Joe, what it is I think, like I'm 43 now, Joe, and you might think this is a mad statement, but even at 43, like the energy that's needed for inter-county level, I've done 5 years at senior inter-county level, Joe, and it is a high energy environment, like a really high energy environment, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting huge demands on it. Everybody now thinks that to go in with this mammoth backroom team. You look at Kevin McStay's backroom teams, a circus, Joe. At Mayo, it's an absolute circus, and everyone knows that. But it ticks all the boxes. It ticks all the boxes. You have big names in, and I think at one stage, Donny and Rochford were linked with about 15 jobs in Ireland at one stage. It was hilarious. I was sort of thinking, geez, if this one doesn't work out, where are they going to end up? But I sort of made a decision last year that I've had multiple offers of inter-county jobs this year, and to be honest with you, but you really, really, Joe, need a huge amount of energy. But what the point I'm coming back to is very straightforward. I'm 43 now, and I've been coaching at schools level for 21 years. I've been coaching at senior level for 15. I retired at 29. I retired from playing at 29, probably too early. But I look back now, Joe, I've no regrets whatsoever. I really enjoyed my coaching journey, and I'm still currently enjoying it. But I'm looking at some coaches now coming through at 34, 35. Who are brilliant coaches. And I mean brilliant coaches. I don't want to start naming them, but I look at, for example, I'll give you one example. I look at a lad, for example, at Donegal, who I would have a lot of respect for, a lad called Luke Barrett.
I know Luke, yeah.
He's a great guy. Luke was the Donegal minor manager, right? Yeah. Now, there's a frustration probably with Luke because he didn't have an illustrious playing background. He doesn't have a string of medals in his back pocket as a player, and might not necessarily have this, really, really, what's the right word? Big name or whatever you want to call it, that some of these guys have. But then you've got to ask the question about some of these guys. What have some of these guys done in the last number of years that warrants this big reputation or big name, and coming with huge demands, et cetera, for counties financing and stuff. So I think, Joe, there needs to be a huge level of regulation at inter-county level in particular. There should be, Joe, you should have to earn, your right to coach there and that. And this is my point there, right? When I came out of playing, I didn't have an illustrious playing career. I enjoyed playing. Now I probably thought I was a better player than a lot of people would say I was, Joe, but that's just the way
I've seen you playing a few times now, Stevie, down at the marshes there. But
I insist, Joe, on one of the best right foots ever seen in Newry. That's a joke. But Joe, that's what it was, and that's the thing. I'm actually glad that I didn't have that right, because I'll tell you why. I had to really earn my respect in coaching, right, very early. And I went into a senior job at a very young age, and I looked around that changing rooms. Brendan McVeigh, Marty Clark, John Clark. That was my first managerial job. James Colgan. These are guys that had played in Croke Park in front of 80,000 people, and I was coming in at 30, and my biggest day out was maybe an intermediate semi-final with my club, and I'll be honest with you, it actually stood me in great stead, because it gave you the confidence and the belief that, that this is and that's the thing, Joe, when you have to earn your reputation. And it's a bit like Marty Clark said to me when he started coaching, because playing came so easy to him, he all of a sudden thought that maybe coaching would come so easy to him, but he quickly found out it doesn't come as easy to you, and you have to work bloody goddamn hard at it, and the hours that you put in and the time spent, like, for example, this evening, just before I came on to see you, I was going through some old notes and things like that, and I was looking at some old files that I had. I had files come back to even when I was coaching in Manchester at university, when I was coaching the university team in 1989, 23 years ago, and we were doing some speed, agility and quickness stuff, and we're trying to, develop some shooting drills and stuff like that out in the field at college in England. And it's mad, and I had a little exercise book that it's well worn away now, but I don't drills wrote in it, that I was doing and stuff, and it was fascinating to actually look back on some of that stuff, So it is, Joe, something for me that I think we need to be looking at in the association. Definitely more regulation as regards, where your coaching awards are, and also who's delivering them, because there's nothing worse, Joe, than going to a coach education day and not having, any dynamic to it, or and that's something that we really pride ourselves on with our own school days, that there's a bit of humor, there's a bit of passion, there's a bit of energy, and there's also obviously abundance of quality, but you need a wee bit of everything on the day, to keep coaches really engaged.
Yeah, you certainly do, Stevie. Stevie, just moving on towards the end, kind of, where do you think coaching education is moving to? I know that we have, obviously, the internet has pushed everything forward with webinars, WhatsApp groups, vlogs. We've got Twitter, tactical animation, coaching websites, like you mentioned earlier on. What do you think the future is of coaching education in the GAA in general?
Well, I do feel that the market is becoming, a lot more saturated than it was, Joe. Which is brilliant in one way, but it takes away a little bit from our day too, because our day was very unique and very special. But I do still feel that we have one of the best coaching education days in the country. I really fully believe we do, and anyone who's ever been to them, I don't think there's ever been any negative feedback for us, which is fantastic. But I do feel, Joe, that there needs to be some form of regulation from Croke Park in that. The awards need really looked at. Joe, I did my level 2 back in 2008 or something, or 2009. I think it was a long time ago. I done level 1 in 07, the year the school won the All Ireland. I done it in 07, and I was laughing.
Did you get a certificate, Stevie? Did you? Because I done mine and I didn't get a certificate for some reason. It was actually Kieran Daly who was running ours, and I didn't get a certificate. So Kieran, if you're listening in, you may get me that certificate fairly soon.
Daily be sending you in a PDF to save the paper, But the but on a serious note, Joe. On a serious note, this is true. You look at it and you think to yourself, that level 1, Joe. I'm not being disrespectful. It was nonsensical. You know what I mean? It was really nonsensical. From coming from a PE background, there was stuff there that you were going what? What did you actually get out of it? Nothing really. As you say, maybe a piece of paper, but nothing really. But the fact that you can get such an array of experience, and the one big thing, Joe, I would say to you, the best experiences I've got have been watching other coaches. That's the best experiences I've got, and the best qualifications. And I remember speaking to a coach actually who did a lot of coaching around a lot of different counties, and I remember saying, I'm like, if you, what have you qualification wise? He goes, nothing, absolutely nothing. And this man would have been maybe coaching for the guts of 20 odd years, and literally no quality. And as you said, Joe, there would be, I would love to see many people actually have coaching qualifications, the foundation, the level 1s and the level 2s, and that's a huge thing, because there's a whole array of things. Now, I know, Joe, it's a wee bit different now, where you have to have the child protection done and stuff like that there, and the things like that. But those are just tick box exercise for administrators somewhere to say, no, that's all above board, and health and safety's gone absolutely mental these days. So, that's just to make sure that everyone's covered and rightly so, and vetted, which is obviously hugely important now when you're working with underage teams, because you have to be so careful, Joe, in the modern day. It's a really trial by social media now out there. If you put a foot wrong, yourself, there'll be a video of you somewhere, or there'll be something floating about on Twitter that to try to defame someone's good name. Unfortunately, that's society that we live in. It's a poisonous society at the present moment in time. But you have to look, Joe. For me, the future of coach education has to be directed from Croke Park down. There has to be some form of regulation or stipulation to say that, to do this, you have to have X, Y, and Z. To coach at this level, you have to have X, Y, and Z. And it would not be that difficult, Joe, to do something like that. It would not be that difficult to have something like that. And look, I would love to see a day, Joe, God Spurs, I would love to see a day where my own day in our own school, that there is some form of qualification or certificate that comes from that as well, because it's become such a really vibrant and popular and hugely beneficial day for coaches at all levels, Joe.
Okay, brilliant, Stevie. So, Stevie, Saturday, this 22nd of October, it starts at 10 o'clock, I believe, and it's at St. Joe's School there in Newry in County Down. From 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, you've got Bernard Jackman, Enda McGinley, Niall Morgan, and Joe Torley. Just before you go, Stevie, sometimes I hear people that run these clinics, the weather can play havoc with it. Do you have contingency plans in place or anything like that in case the weather is really bad?
Our first session's indoor.
Right.
So the coaches will be indoor initially for Bernard's talk. That we're back indoors this year, Joe. We had to have a full outdoor one there last year because of COVID and stuff like that. So we're back indoors for Bernard's. And then the one bit of advice that I would give is if you don't want to get your hair wet, you shouldn't be coaching. So I'll tell you, I've been a bad day. And many's a bad pitches. I'm sure you've been too, Joe. And I remember one year traveling down the road to Carlow training and leaving Newry, and there was snow at the Carrickdale Hotel. And for anyone obviously listening, the Carrickdale Hotel is about 10 minutes from my house, about 2 hours from Carlow, and it was heavy. And I remember ringing O'Brien and saying to Turlock, look, the snow is heavy here. Like, you still want me to travel down? He says, you'll be grand. He says, the you'll be grand. Far away there's not hardly a sniffle here. He says, and so by the time I got to fucking what do you call the junction there, bloody just outside Castle Dermot there, and close to the junction of Cumberland, the visibility was about 3 meters, and it was like about 6 inches of snow. I thought it was going to be snowed in, but eventually we trained in heavy snow that night, Joe, and I tell you, those were character building sessions. Those weren't, I have to say.
Turlow's he's a hard taskmaster, isn't he?
He is indeed. Great fella.
Stevie, well, here, listen, good luck on Saturday. You'll certainly be a busy man, and you'll enjoy a few pints after it, I'd say.
Yeah, listen, look, we're looking forward to it, Joe. And again, Joe, maybe just to make a point of referencing as well, like, the support we get from the school staff as well is absolutely invaluable, from our principal and our vice principal, Declan and Mark there, and then right down through the staff as well. Like, last year we must have had the guts of 7 or 8 staff in, the likes of Blaine and Damien and Kevin and Francie and these guys. They're absolutely brilliant guys. Like, and they'll come in and, they'll give up their morning, they'll give up their day, and no one, as I say, Joe, genuinely no one gets any profit out of it. There's no pennies exchange hands with us. Everything goes back into the school, and that's the beauty of the day as well, Joe. You get great satisfaction and you get a great buzz at the end of the day, knowing that these people are coming to support the school just as much as the day as well. So thanks very much. Brilliant.
Good luck this weekend, Stevie. Okay, well, thanks very much for tuning in, and thanks, Stevie.
Thank you, Joe.